Good evening, and welcome to tomorrow's Tropics for the 2020 hurricane season. Please note, I am not a meteorologist, and while they're a bit better than the April forecast, May forecast can still be generally inaccurate because it is a bit early to actually forecast hurricane seasons because it's only May. But I'm still forecasting 15 to 18 named storms, 8 to 11 hurricanes, 2 to 5 major hurricanes, all with an accumulated cyclone energy index of 120 to 165 units. So pretty similar to last month because I'm not seeing any major trends that want me to make me confidently move it up or down significantly. It's been moved to tick up, but not all that much. So first off, let's look at the ENSO. This has changed quite a bit since April 1st, and it's been the epicenter of warmth has generally been in this region. At some point, sometimes it's this area, but usually it cools down quite quickly. But the warmth is a lot more persistent here, and you can see that right now there's a cold tongue that might just be an artifact of the sea surface temperature anomaly or anomalies here because this just showed up recently. But there are some more indications that there will be a cool neutral or even La Nina event coming soon, in the next few months. And now it's not just from model products that are showing that. There are some actual conditions that are showing there might be a flip in the ENSO state from the warm neutral / El Nino state it's been in for a very long time. So first off, let's look below the surface. So this is a rather expensive cool pool of water here that is lurking below the surface in the central and eastern Pacific, and this is coming below a rapidly weakening warm pool that used to dominate this area over here, but now has been weakened to almost nothing. So this is an indication that with further easterly wind bursts, you're going to see this slowly get up to the surface and replace the warm waters and push the ENSO state to neutral. And also, we've recently seen the mixed wind pattern change to a much more persistent pattern of easterly winds compared to normal. As you can see here is an extended kind of easterly wind burst feature, and it looks like those could continue longer term, but here's the first rather major one that we've really seen. And so these two factors together show that we might be seeing an actual flip coming soon, and it's not just the ENSO models showing us that. And what cooler ENSO does is you don't have as much rising air in this region, so that means it has the tropical Atlantic has a better chance to have rising air. So that's the Walker cell. So I have sinking air here. That means you usually have more rising air here, and vice versa. So that's why you tend to see inactive seasons during El Nino years and more active seasons during La Nina years. So that would make the Walker cell more favorable for the Atlantic. And also, one part of the Walker cell is shear, because if you have an El Nino here, the extra convection can push the outflow into the Atlantic, which shears storms in the tropics. And if you don't have as much convection from the ENSO regions because there's a La Nina, that means you have less shear, so that allows storms to thrive in a less sheared environment. Looking at the Atlantic tropics, you can see that it isn't really all that warm. It's not super warm, but it's not super cool. It's mixed. There's some regions of warmer than normal water here, and then there's a band of cooler than normal water here. So it's not exactly a big signal saying that's far below average or far above average at this point. And as you can notice, there's not really that blob of warm water that was there from there during the early spring and the winter. So that kind of makes me a bit less confident that we'll see a very warm Atlantic tropical region, which is a good sign because that means there might be not as much activity, which, it being 2020, yeah, a quiet season would be pretty good. And also, this area of warmer water than usual in the subtropics opens the door for lower pressure to concentrate here instead of the tropics. And if you have that, that means the sinking air gets displaced down to the tropics instead of the subtropics. And that means you have that dry sinking air that can really hurt tropical storms or tropical disturbances in general, even if there's no little shear. So that can also tamp down the season, at least in the tropics. But we'll have to see what happens here because we are seeing some, or I am seeing some indications that things will be similar, at least kind of similar to the last few years, where it's cool-ish in this region until you get near the peak of the season, and then suddenly it starts warming up, and that's for two reasons. Africa is pretty much doing the same thing it has the past few years. It's looking very active, and the rising air in that region and the western Indian Ocean means that you might have reduced trade winds as the West African monsoon kicks up, and then that as you have the trade winds slacken, that means you have warmer water because it is not experiencing as much of the evaporative cooling or upwelling as it would with stronger trade winds. And you can see here that it has cooled quite a bit. Actually, it was warm for a long time, and now it has just almost collapsed to near normal. But there's also another pattern that we haven't seen as much that might cause the main development region here to warm up, just like it has the past few years. You can see that there's still this blob kind of area of weaker than normal trades, but it is situated to the south of the main development region, so that has meant the stronger trade winds can kick up here, which is kind of led to intrusions of cooler water into the main development region, as we were seeing today. So this still appears to be related to the Atlantic meridional mode, and as you can see, if it is indeed related, then as it ticks up north with the intertropical convergence zone, it'll start enveloping more of this region, and that means if you have weaker trade winds in the entire main development region, then you're going to have the sea surface temperatures go up more than normal. And the pressure pattern pretty much confirms this. You have the higher pressure than usual in the South Atlantic, and not really higher normal pressures in the tropical Atlantic east of the islands here. And as a result, you have weaker than normal trade winds in this region. And as the intertropical convergence zone moves north, you'll have this area of higher pressure tick up north and possibly weaken the trades for the entire tropical Atlantic. And lastly, looking at Africa, so this has been one factor that's actually caused the 2018 season to go from almost looking completely dead to being somehow above normal, as it was able to warm up the main development region and have more vigorous tropical waves actually end up developing. And something similar happened in 2019. You had those vigorous tropical waves that ended up becoming storms like Dorian, but it became so powerful that possibly it ended up causing stable air along with some low pressure north of the tropics. So there were a lot of storms that are choked off by dry, stable air, except for a few, like, for example, Lorenzo, which excelled in the main development region. Last month, we saw a region in the southern Sahel that had below average precipitable water, and an above average region here, or around here, that had above average precipitable water. So there's a north-south dipole that favored the south and could have caused the West African monsoon to become suppressed south, which means tropical waves that come off can't take advantage of the Coriolis force as much. So that means you'd have less tropical waves actually developing because they can't get as much spin. But you see that's pretty much been eliminated except for maybe this normal area, contrasted with this above normal area, but it's much weaker than before. And you can see even out in the Atlantic, a bit west of the prime meridian, you have an above average region with below average below or to the south, which means you have a north-south dipole that favors the north and less suppressed West African monsoon, which means you might have the kind of double benefit for tropical waves coming into this region as they experience above normal moisture so they can maintain convection, and also they're further to the north so they can get a more beefy kind of spin to them before they hit the ocean, and that might benefit them in that they don't have to develop as much to end up getting that spin and becoming a tropical cyclone. But as always, even if this season isn't active or active as I am predicting right now, it only takes one storm for your area to have a bad season. So no matter the forecast, always be prepared. If you have issues with my video or any questions, please ask me or tell me what the issue is. And thanks for watching.